Not all slavery was bad. Jesus Christ. God made some people slaves to help all people advance. They were looked after by God. We wouldn't be as advanced without slaves in the past. We don't need that anymore. Prayer hands. First of all, hello privilege. It's a lot easier to say bullshit like that when you can't trace your own family history back to slavery. And the fact that you think that your God made certain people to be slaves makes him sound even worse than pretty much anything I've ever said about him. Okay, see these people over here? These are the Israelites. They are not to be made slaves under any circumstances. See those people in the neighboring country? Totally make them slaves. In fact, I geared them to become slave-like type people. I mean, that's fucking monstrous, dude. Especially when we look at it from the whole man is made in God's image. You're saying that God engineered society so that some people would have privilege and some people would just be engineered to be underlings for the privileged. Now, granted, there are some things that happen throughout history that probably could not have happened without a great degree of human suffering. People were put in horrible situations and died because they were trying to advance society that they weren't going to benefit from. Because there's just some things that you cannot pay people enough money to go and do. I'm always forced to remember how many of the Chinese were blown up in caves when they were trying to just build tunnels for trains in the 1800s. Or people today that die in mines in Africa trying to get blood diamonds. I get that starvation is a hell of a motivator, but it is not a good way to run a society. But if you think about it, people like coal miners do a super dangerous job, but they're at least paid for their efforts. They get to go home at the end of the day. Granted, a lot of them live much shorter lives because of things like black lung, but just because there were some advancements due to slavery does not make that slavery not bad. And the sad thing is this is not the first time that I've ever heard this bad take before. I've heard people in my inner circle when I was growing up say terrible things like, the pyramids are one of the wonders of the world and we wouldn't have had that if they didn't have slavery back then. This country would not be the powerhouse it is today if not for those workers doing those jobs. There's still slavery going on today in China, but you still buy those cell phones, don't you? Like these type of arguments somehow make it better or justified in some way, when it absolutely does not. We can't know whether or not society would have advanced just as easily without slavery, because we didn't try it that way. But you know what? I would much rather look back on history and see how we advanced without it than with it. This video is probably going to be suppressed because I said the word slavery way too many times in here. But I thought it was important to point out this bad take because I have heard this argument pretty much throughout my entire life, and I feel like it's a shit take.